Machado Garry beat the Fighting Nerds Carlos Prates at UFC Kansas City this past Saturday and cemented himself once again as a title contender in the UFC's welterweight division. Garry moves to 9-1 in the UFC and bounces back after he lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov back in December at UFC 310, and he won this pretty convincingly, although the way the fight ended might tell you otherwise, as Carlos Prates looked like he was nearly finishing Garry. The opposite was true for 95+% of that fight. At the end of the fourth round and at the end of the fifth round, Prates did gain a little bit momentum and did land some big shots on Garry, but Garry still outstruck Carlos Prates in significant strikes in each of the 5 rounds of this fight, while finishing the fight with 4 takedowns on 19 attempts, over 3 minutes of control time. This was a really great victory for Ian Machado Garry. He landed 126 significant strikes throughout this fight, which was over double what Carlos Prates landed. And from the first minute and the beginning of this fight, it was pretty evident that Ian Garry was in control, and this was his fight to lose from the beginning. Carlos Prates just seemed like the smaller guy, although he, on paper, the facts don't say that. Ian Machado Garry is a big welterweight, and not just in height, but just he has a big build, and I think that benefited him. And Prates just seemed a little gun shy from the beginning of this fight and didn't seem as comfortable as he has been in the past, as he last beat Neil Magny, who Garry did beat a couple years ago. But it just seems like Garry, although he is the younger fighter, it seems like he's further along in his UFC career and has that necessary experience, which I thought would be the difference, and it was the difference in this fight. And Garry did such a good job, and every time Prates would land a good punch or a good combination, Garry did such a great job of mixing in the takedowns and the level changes and just showing his growth as a fighter, because a couple years ago when Garry entered the UFC, he was purely a striker. Now that he's at a shoot box in Brazil, he's improved his grappling, his jiu-jitsu, and has made him a complete fighter and a guy who matches up pretty well with the champion Belal Muhammad right now, if that fight would come to fruition in the future. But before this fight, Garry was ranked number 7, beats number 13 Prates on just about 3 weeks' notice. I mean, this guy is as active as it gets. He fought Shavkat Rakhmonov in under a month's notice, and before this fight, Garry said he plans to be in Montreal, Canada, to be the backup fighter for the welterweight title fight between Belal Muhammad and Jack Della Maddalena at UFC 314 just in 2 weeks. And Dana White and the UFC made that official after Ian Machado Garry's victory, that he will be the backup fighter for that next undisputed welterweight title shot. So, I mean, although it's unlikely, obviously, and hopefully he isn't needed to fight the champion Belal Muhammad, it still is crazy that he is taking every step and every opportunity in front of him to get in the good graces of the UFC and do everything to earn a title shot in the future. Because after he lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov, who was supposed to get a title shot against Belal Muhammad but suffered an injury, and he seems ahead of him, the UFC loves guys like Garry who are willing to fight anybody at any time and step up and help the UFC. And Garry's done just that, and he's been a model citizen for the UFC. And although I don't think Garry seems so adamant that he is next for the title, and I just don't believe that. And unless Shavkat Rakhmonov is severely injured and still is injured and cannot fight the winner of Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena, I just don't think Garry's done enough to not only jump Shavkat, who just beat him, but jump Sean Brady, who has been on a dominant stretch in his own right. And I think Garry should fight a guy like Sean Brady for a rightful number one contendership to see who can fight for the title after Shavkat, because I think Shavkat is the next guy. But that doesn't take anything away from this victory. Garry showed that even after suffering his first defeat, not only in his UFC career, but in his MMA career, he can bounce back, do it in a big way against another top and hungry up-and-coming prospect in Carlos Prates. He got the job done. Great victory for Ian Machado Garry, and the future has proved once again that his future is bright, and we'll see what's next. Do you guys think that Ian Machado Garry will fight for a title next? Or do you think he'll have to fight another top contender? Time will tell. Drop what you think will happen with Ian Machado Garry in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.